So without any further ado, I'm going to jump right in here and pull out from our questions on Genesis. We had a couple that, well, I'm going to start with a really easy one. I think it's easy. These guys might not agree. Dinosaurs. Do they contradict the Bible?
Yeah, so the short answer is I don't know. I think that the Bible actually talks about dinosaurs. You can tell me what you think. So, does anybody know what the oldest book in the Bible is? Meaning, not like, which book of the Bible do you think was written first? Anybody know? Hector? Job. Excellent work, Hector. Very good. Well done. So Job is probably the earliest book written. Hector, any idea why we think that? What makes us know that? Any idea? There's a number of different kind of clues in it, but among others that it seems like it doesn't mention any of the Mosaic laws. It predates all of the. Job seems to be kind of the priest of his family, which would put it very, very early in the scheme of things. There's a number of clues like that. And in Job 40 and 41, well, you guys know what Job's about in a word? Like, what's it about? You guys, you can shout out if you know. Servitude, okay. Really, what's Job's chief complaint? You guys remember? You guys know that he suffers inheritance. His whole family gets killed. All of his wealth gets blown away. He gets these horrible, wretched sores all over his body. It's just this miserable time. And when God finally responds to his questions, he basically said, well, where were you when I created the earth? Where were you when I did this? And he kind of begins to walk through some of the things that God is most proud of in all of creation. Things that he made and say, well, what about this? Were you here when I did that? And so listen to this. Listen to what God says to Job. This is in Job 40. If you want to look at this in verse 15. He says, look at the behemoth, which I made along with you, which feeds on grass like an ox, what strength he has in his loins, what power in the muscles of his belly. His tail sways like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are close knit. His bones are tubes of bronze. His limbs like rods of iron. He ranks first among the works of God. Yet his maker can approach him with a sword. The hills bring him their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants he lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal him in their shadow. Da-da-da-da. What does that sound like to you?
Pretty big dinosaur.
Doesn't it sound like it's like a brontosaurus? I mean, I'm not up on my dinosaurs, but like a brontosaurus, some big thing, living in the swamp, this huge thing. Some would say that's actually an elephant. It says that his tail sways like a cedar. You ever seen an elephant tail? It's like the least impressive part, right? Okay, and then he goes on, and then God continues, and he says, can you pull in the Leviathan with a fish hook, or tie down his tongue with a rope, or put a cord through his nose? And he goes on to describe what this thing is. He says, can you make this Leviathan like a bird? Can you make a pet of him like a bird? Or put him on a leash for your girls? If you lay a hand on him, you will remember the struggle and never do it again. He says, I will not fail to speak of his limbs, his strength, and his graceful form. Who could strip off his outer coat? Who would approach him with a bridle? Who dares to open the doors of his mouth? His back has a row of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They're joined fast together. They cling to one another, cannot be parted. Doesn't it sound again like we're talking about a dinosaur? Now, maybe it's not. I don't know. But I think the oldest book that we have in our Bible talks about these creatures that God is really proud of, and I think that very well can be that he's talking about dinosaurs. Now, behind that question, I think, is, okay, well, if dinosaurs lived millions and millions of years ago, and mankind lived, sometime after that, whether it was thousands of years ago or fewer millions, depending on what your perspective is, that's really the question: is could these things have ever coexisted? And I think that absolutely it could be that dinosaurs and people coexisted, that Job saw, or God saw and described to Job these creatures, talked about them as if Job himself would recognize them. So I don't know if that's the case for sure, but I think that there's a plausible case to be made, for that. So we'll start there, and we can come back to any of these if you want to.
Chris, this is light, If God was always there, what was before the earth? Nice light question for you.
Yeah, great. All right. When you guys think of the concept of eternity, right? Something is eternal. Normally we think into the future, right? We think, okay, this person will live forever in eternity. We think eternity future. But actually, when you step back and think about the concept of eternity, it also means eternally in the past as well, right? Oftentimes we don't have that perspective. And so when we talk about God being eternal, God has always existed well into eternity past and will always exist into eternity future. And so if that's the case, then there was a time when the earth did not exist, right? But God did, because God describes himself as eternal. And one of the big questions when it comes to the question of origins, right? Where did the earth come from? Where did the universe come from? And what scientists try to do, astronomers, physicists, they try to keep going back. Okay, let's back it up. What came? What was before the earth? And oftentimes they'll come back to what they call the Big Bang theory, which is the idea that in one moment the universe sort of began or exploded into existence and began the process of evolving into what we know today. And the big question that they always had that they can't quite answer is, okay, well, what came before that? Let's just say the Big Bang, right? There's carbon, hydrogen, all these different elements that were together, and there was this explosion. And the question that people always ask is, okay, well, where did the carbon come from? Where did the hydrogen come from? What was there before that? And this question called first cause. What was the initial cause of the universe itself? And I think that's where the Bible helps us understand, if God truly is eternal, self-existent, always was, always will be, that he ultimately is the first cause of those, elemental elements of the universe. And, we can talk all about creation, evolution, all that kind of stuff, but really the question of what came first. And if it's not God, right, if God wasn't the one that initially got things started, then what did? Did matter just sort of come into existence? Well, that probably takes about as much faith to just believe that the initial elements of our universe just sort of came into existence, as opposed to a loving personal God that always did exist, who describes himself as eternal, that was the first cause for all that we know.
I just want to say something on that too, because that concept is extremely old, that idea of cause. It goes the whole way back to at least Plato. Plato wrote about that, and he postulated for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Everything that happens has a cause, he said. And he said that there must be then an original cause. And basically, in his own way, what he was looking for was looking for God. He was looking for something that he postulated had to be outside of all the cause and reaction effect that we see in the universe around us, something that was the initial first cause that stood out beyond it, that initiated it. So it's a very, very old concept that even extra biblical philosophically has been thought about. Last couple here, and I'll throw these out to you guys just maybe for a quick thought on two together. Where did Adam and Eve come from, and why were Adam and Eve and all of the early people in the Bible so old, as one person wrote it, with a lot of O's? Who was that? That was Hector. Hector asked me to make sure that we talked about that. So why were they so old, and where did they come from?
Yeah, you can take that. So, Hector, how old was the oldest guy? Do you remember? Quinn, remember?
Wasn't it Methuselah, 969?
Yeah, 969 years old. He's the longest.
Give him a hand.
Well done. So, and that sounds like a really, really long time, right? Compared to like, what are you guys going to live? You're going to be, what's your plan? 80, 70, 90?
I know, we're closer than they are to the
Right,
end.
yeah, we're winning. So, but here's the thing: they were supposed to live forever. The plan A was that they would never die, right? The only reason that Methuselah died at the young age of 969, and the only reason you're going to die, at 80, 90, or 16, whatever it ends up being, is because of sin. Sin is in the world. So they were meant to live forever, and it seems that when you watch their ages, they just kind of slowly drop from like around 1,000 down to 180, 70. Kind of what we know. So it seems that as the world continued to break and everything got mangled up and disease spread and the body began to deteriorate and the copy of the copy of the copy, i.e. the child of the child of the child, the kind of the degradation that entered into the world just increased, such that for now we feel like 90 years is a long time. But these guys, they were supposed to live forever. So I think that's for that.
Okay.